pyro. Hey, before I get into this video and talk to you about fire kits, I wanted to share something that was a little bit disappointing to me. Alexa, play some pouty face, angry man music. That's a little bit too aggressive. Okay, Alexa, play something a little less pouty face, angry man music for somebody who has just chipped the blade of one of their knives. Okay, Alexa, play something that's more sad to soothe the soul of somebody who has just chipped the blade of one of their favorite knives. Oh, this music is perfect. I lament to tell you, my friends, that I chipped the blade of one of my favorite knives. The Rob Evans original bush tool in RWL 34. So in my video last night where I was making the blueberry peach crisp, I was lighting a fire and I was doing some white batoning, and I must have hit the tip of the blade on the paver stones, which, silly me, I should have known that if you're going to baton wood, you've got to be more careful. Now, looking at this footage, I think that's what happened. It could have been the other batoning. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but right here in this footage, it looks like I batoned through and may have hit the edge of the blade against the paver stone. I'm not exactly sure, but yes, I had to take some time today to sharpen out the chip from my blade. I felt so sad about it. And I'm happy to say that if you look at this blade, it looks pretty good. It's not quite as polished as the fine work that Rob does, but it should do the trick. Yeah, I've got some scuffs on the blade right here. You know, that's the thing I will say. Rob would feel very sad if anybody just bought one of his knives and made it into a drawer queen. Like, he wants you to use his tools. And so that, my friends, is exactly what I did, except I just was a little bit careless. I will say though, batoning wood, even if you don't baton through and hit the edge of your blade on a hard surface, even just through wood or, you know, a little bit of dirt that may be rocky or just whatever, it can just happen. It just does. But as you can see here, after working on that edge, like, it's extremely sharp, but it still catches right there and then goes through. Okay, again, perfect, and then there's a little bit of a catch right there. So I worked the edge of the knife on a 1200 grit diamond stone and then on a 2200, and then gave it a really nice hard strop. But right about when I run my nail along the edge, right about there, there's a little bit of a catch. I gotta be really careful because I don't want to cut my finger. Yeah, right about in there. So you can't see it. Like, I'm looking at it and I cannot see it with my eye, but you sure can feel it when you're slicing paper. The good thing is knives aren't just made to slice paper. That little tiny chip that I've got in there that I can still feel does not hinder the functionality of the knife one bit. As you can see, still just super razor sharp. So yeah, it'll still work. So I don't know why I'm being so OCD about it, except for the fact that I just hate when I end up putting a little bit of damage into the edge of one of my blades. So maybe let that be a lesson learned, ladies and gentlemen. Do not baton with a knife, even if it's just light batoning. Use something else. Save the edge of your blade. Or just don't be a freaking idiot and stupid and baton through and damage the blade. Anyways, so was able to fix the blade, and I think that knife's gonna be just fine. So I want to talk to you a little bit about fire kits. So I have to tell you, when I started this whole YouTube thing, or really started trying to get into it a lot more heavy, I put out a video based on other videos that I had seen and the success that those videos had related to bushcraft fire kits. And my kit had everything from a lighter to flint and steel to duct tape to tinder fungus to you name it. Everything you could possibly imagine. Matches, I think. I'd have to go back and take a look at that video. But as I was thinking about it, last night specifically when I was making the fire to do a little bit of cooking, I figured it was probably time to do another video on fire kits and just talk to you about my philosophy on fire kits. As you can see here, I have something just very small and compact. I have some leather bags and some other kind of nostalgic, fancy, bushcraftier type pouches that I can fit some of this stuff in. But when it comes to fire, my philosophy is this: keep it simple, stupid. There's no reason to overcomplicate fire. There's no reason to make it more difficult than what it needs to be. Because when you need fire, the less complex it is to start a fire, the more success you're going to have. So what do I mean by that? I do want to be very careful and preface this that I do not think that there is anything wrong with any method of starting fire at all. In fact, I really enjoy using methods like flint and steel. I'm not the best at friction fire, but I do find that enjoyable. Using a Fresnel lens to start fire, whatever it may be, there's no right or wrong way. If you can get yourself a fire going, that is a win. That said, there are some methods that are much more efficient than other methods with a lot less variables introduced that could give you a higher fill rate depending on all the variables and the environment that you're trying to navigate. And that's what goes into the thought process related to my kit, is what is the most simple, most efficient way of getting a fire going. Not to say that you can't practice and use those other methods, but you should always have in your kit something that will give you the quickest fire possible with the least amount of variables to navigate. So I'm just going to go ahead and open up my kit and show you what I have. The first thing that I have in the front pouch here is just a multi-tool. And the multi-tool that I have tucked away in my fire kit is just a simple Leatherman rebar. Okay. I think it's always great to have some type of a tool to add to your fire kit. It could just be something as simple as a folding knife. Just happened that that pouch was the right size to fit my Leatherman, one of a couple Leatherman rebars. And so I just keep one dedicated with my fire kit. It has a saw, it has a knife, it has other tools that can be used for other things. But having a multi-tool or some type of cutting tool as part of your fire kit, in my opinion, is always a plus. You may need to process some tinder. You may need to process some kindling. You can use that tool with the saw functionality. You can use it as a striker. You can use it for so many different things. So having a tool is an added plus. Now, let's go ahead and open up the pouch. The first thing that I have in here is a waterproof container, and within that waterproof container, I have Strike Anywhere and UCO stormproof matches. Yep, I am a huge believer in matches. I don't think that there is anything wrong with matches. Matches are great. Where people have fails using matches has less to do with the ignition source of the match and everything to do with their fire preparation. Trying to get the fire prepared to receive the ignition source is where the fail comes in. It's not that the match is the problem. And having them in a little stormproof case, matches are very quick. You have your ignition source, it burns on the wood. So you have a flame extender. You can actually modify the matches to give you more of a flame extender if you really want. Check out some of my other videos and shorts related to the super hairy matches. I don't have any super hairy matches in here because of other things that I have in this fire kit, and I'm going to get to those. So stormproof and strike anywhere matches. I then have a ferro rod, because a ferro rod, believe it or not, as much as I don't enjoy using that as my primary ignition source, I think ferro rods are extremely functional and a very good tool to have in a fire kit. You can throw a ferrocerium rod in water, you can drop it, you can do whatever you want with it. Lasso a moose even if you want to. This thing will always work. The problem where people get into trouble with ferrocerium rods is the same thing with matches. They don't prepare the fire, the tinder and kindling, to accept the ignition source. Now, if you know what you're doing, you can get a successful fire with a ferrocerium rod almost every time. And that leads to the next item. Okay. Got myself a little Altoid tin I keep in that pouch, the Ranger band. What do I have in here? Let me show you. I've got these tinder plugs. These are pretty much my do-it-yourselfer tinder plugs. That's just basically a cotton plug that is soaked in paraffin wax and paraffin oil. You can fluff these things out, you can bend them, they're waterproof, and they will take a spark from a ferrocerium rod with no problem at all and give you a nice extended burn time of a few minutes, which, as you can see in my video last night, if you've seen that video, I had no reason to prepare the kindling down really fine, had no reason to feather stick. With a couple of fire plugs, you can get more coarse kindling lit in no time at all. And also in this tin, so I've got fire plugs, but I also have my preferred ignition source, which is just a simple Bic butane lighter. Got a little bit of Gorilla Tape. Actually, that's not Gorilla Tape, it's just 1-inch high-vis duct tape, but works great as a flame extender. So I keep that in my tin. So why a lighter? Well, because there's less variables that you need to worry about. Now, I have heard some people complain about lighters, saying, well, I'd never carry a lighter because if you put it in your kit and you don't put a thing under there, you can plunge the fuel out, blah, 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 blah. All these reasons. Don't carry it in your pocket. You'll plunge the fuel out unless you tie cord or whatever around here. I'm going to tell you, I have never, ever, 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 ever had a problem expending the fuel of a butane lighter while carrying it in my pocket or throwing it in my gear or keeping it in my Altoids tin. I don't know what people are doing or how they go about plunging and having this held down like this indefinitely until the fuel expends completely out of your lighter. So if anybody's had that happen, I think it's more anecdotal than it is a reality. I think what happens is people look at this and they get into this crazy survival mindset of all the different things that possibly could go wrong that are so hypothetical and so unrealistic that the chances of that happening are next to none. Kind of like saying, well, I'm hiking up a hill and I need to have a knife on my backpack and I need to have a knife on my belt and I need to have a knife in my boot, because if I drop my backpack and it rolls off a cliff, then I've got the knife on my belt. But if I end up pulling down my pants to take a crap and my belt falls off and I lose my knife, then I've got the one on my in my boot. I just want you to think about that. The reality of that happening is not reality. Those things might happen if an individual introduces those types of situations into their homemade survival situations that they're out there living in all their survival fantasies. But like, yep, I can hear it hissing and stuff like that. But again, never had any problem expending a lighter. That said, if by chance something crazy ever did happen, then just carry another lighter. And that's what I have in the back pouch here, is a jet lighter. something that's a little bit more windproof. Now, it's not fail proof, but these little jet lighters work really great too. Again, you're not using a lighter for the sake of, I'm gonna just go ahead and hold this under my kindling like this and expend all this fuel in order to get the fire started. This is nothing more than an ignition source. No different than a match, no different than a ferrocerium rod. It is more about preparing the fire to receive the ignition source than it is the ignition source. And the reason why I like lighters so much is because with the flick of a thumb, one-handed, you get a flame. I don't need to worry about holding a ferrocerium rod and striking it and having both hands occupied. I can literally pull this out, hold a Tinder swab in this hand, give it a quick flick like I did in the video, put it under some more coarsely prepared kindling, and get that fire going in no time. That leads me to the last item that I keep in my fire kit. So I have the fire plugs in the Altoid can, or the Altoid tin with my lighter. And in the back, I have similarly some makeup remover pads. I just get these at Walmart, and these are soaked in the same formula as my Tinder swabs, and these will give you a good 5 to 7 minute burn time. So these also go in my fire kit. So between the Stormproof and Strike Anywhere matches and my fire discs and my lighters and my ferrocerium rod and my Altoids tin with my fire plugs or Tinder plugs, one just fell out. Oh no, whatever shall I do? Between all of these items, I have everything I need in a very compact kit. The Altoids tin fits in like that. The matches go on top. The ferrocerium rod fits in the internal pouch. This can be zipped up like that. In the back, I have my jet lighter and my fire discs, just like that. Zip that shut. And my multi-tool in the front pouch. That is all I need for my fire kit. Again, this is what works for me. I'm not saying that this is right. I'm not saying that this is the end all to any type of a fire kit. You may have very specific preferences and things that you like to do and things that you like to carry in your fire kit. Now, I at times will carry flint and steel in my pack when I want to find some time to relax, to practice some more primitive methods of building fire or feather sticking with my knives, because I find that very enjoyable. And then lighting the feather sticks and seeing everything go up in flames, it's very, very enjoyable. But when I need fire quickly, I go to a no-nonsense approach of fire. What can give me fire almost instantaneously, most efficiently, and what do I have in my kit that's going to increase the likelihood of me being able to get that fire going without having to spend a lot of time processing down the kindling fine enough to receive the ignition source. And that's why I'm a huge proponent of prepared tinders. You can throw those tinders in your kit. Now, I know a lot of people, they like to harvest stuff off the land. They like to split down the wood and make their feather sticks and go find all sorts of great things. Punk wood, fat wood, different types of funguses that can catch a spark, just like you would if you were using char cloth and flint and steel. Again, there is nothing wrong with that. In fact, I'm a huge proponent of learning how to do those things so that if you ever needed to rely on those things, you pretty much know how to navigate the landscape, what to look for in order to get yourself a fire going. Same thing with friction fires. Friction fires are more complicated, more variables that you introduce, but if you are apt and you have practiced well enough with those methods, getting a fire going with a friction fire or a bow drill set or a hand plow or whatever it may be is not that big of a deal. That said, I would not recommend your fire kit relying on friction fire solely. I think that there are fun times to use those, but I think that if you really needed to get fire going as quickly as you could, relying on friction fire as your primary method probably, in my opinion, does not make a lot of sense. And if you want to get super creative, you can throw in a jet lighter lightsaber into your fire kit. It changes color. Oh, Kylo Ren. Well, this is AJ with Blackhawk Bushcraft talking fire kits. So when I'm thinking efficiency, I keep my fire kit very simple. I keep it very small with the things in there that are gonna give me the greatest chance of starting a fire over anything else. Yes, again, I'm a huge advocate of carrying a Bic lighter. Again, put one of these in your pocket, do 100 jumping jacks, 52 push-ups, sit-ups, squats, anything you can think of in the forest, somersaults. You are not going to expend the plunger and waste all of the fuel in your lighter. I don't care what anybody else says. Somebody that would find themselves doing that, in my opinion, is a silly fool. Kind of like me chipping the blade of my Rob Evans bush tool. What kind of fool would do that? In fact, I could see Rob saying this right now if he was watching this video. Alan, why were you battening your wood on top of paver stones? That is just the dumbest, most silly American thing you could be doing. But you get the point. If you're going to baton your wood, again, just pay the freak attention so you don't damage the end of your blade and end up having to resharpen out the chip, only to find that you didn't get it all the way out, but that you can still keep it shaving sharp and functional. It's just, I don't like the thought of having a chip in my blade. Alexa, play sad music again. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Bush Tool. I'm sorry, Rob. I should have known better. Okay, this is AJ with Blackhawk Bushcraft. Thank you so much for joining the video today. Please like and subscribe. Please add your comments related to my approach to fire, or if there's anything else that you carry in your fire kit that you think gives you quick and efficient methods of starting fire, I'd be very interested to hear your comments as well. Till the next video, take care.